out of their first match, at least the first match on stream.
And touching on a point Frodo made, I mean, the Chinese scene does get undersold, and to come through as the one qualifier from China, Huang must have been playing pretty damn well, because there's a lot of players to get through there, and they're very, very powerful.
Yeah, quite a few players, especially in the top 8. There weren't any names that he defeated on his way to here, but in the top 8 were players like Xiao Guqi and Taiji, if you know of those players in the Chinese scene here. But you know, all that aside, let's get into the analysis of this particular game. It's going to be the Dragon Priest versus the Rogue here from Fluffy. We just call it Rogue because it's always Pirates and Miracle stuff. But yeah, this is a very interesting matchup because this used to be just, obviously, you know, back in the day, everyone said, oh, it's Rogue and it's Priest. Rogue wins every single time. But an interesting switch flip happened during the not Kazakh, it's the Karazhan format, where actually the Priest gained the advantage as far as which deck was favored. It's just that no one knew it because no one was playing Priest at the time. But that flipped back over to being essentially a 50-50 matchup, and because of the Pirates in the arsenal of the Rogue. But the reason why is because the Priest minions are just so darn healthy that's very hard for Rogue to deal with them, especially without Blade Flurry.
Yeah, Huang made a very interesting play on turn 2 here, by the way. He invested his Whelp, which could have made his Twilight Guardian bad if he didn't draw another dragon. But he's managed to draw the Operative just in time to make his Guardian good again. He couldn't just skip turn 2. If you skip turns against Rogue, you find yourself in a world of pain. So he took the leap of faith that he would get more dragons. He's playing a dragon deck. He's allowed to draw more dragons. And so he basically played a 2-3 for 2 mana, which is fine if you're desperate. And he's managed to draw his way out of that. So that was a good investment he made there.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly with the Cabal Talon Priest in hand, it's just so much more upside than sitting there and doing a whole lot of nothing. That Cabal Talon Priest getting the maximum value. However, kind of stuck in an awkward position right now, as every trade is just, you know, bad in this situation. I suppose he's going to hold on to the slight bit of health that he has on this Twilight Whelp. In fact, not even going to bother attacking into the Tomb Pillager here. Just wants to get the damage to face and
prevent the coin.
Yeah, absolutely. Prevents the coin. This Tomb Pillager cannot kill itself on any of these minions. But Fluffy does have a backup plan here in the Shifting Shade, which is going to get him even more Priest cards.
Assuming he wants it. I mean, he also has the option to, he's got to consider the questing into Conceal as well. He probably won't do that, but he has so many choices. He may just choose to get the huge questing down. Of course, that is a bit dangerous because of the likes of Shadow Word Death.
Yeah, the questing Conceal here, unless you get a lot of damage in this coming turn, you're probably going to get blown out by something like Dragonfire Potion. Although, I say probably, there's only one in the deck. If you guys are wondering, we were talking about Lucius last series and the 2 Dragonfire Potions in his deck, but only one here for Huang. He does have it in hand, though, which is very important, especially because this questing could get out of control.
And he has decided to go for the questing, saving the Shifting Shade for the next turn. He has that double preparation for the Auctioneer turn, you would think. So he's going with the reasoning that he can put the pressure on here, not necessarily use this questing as a combo or a kill card, just as a card to put some pressure on, to set him up so he has a nice free turn on his Auctioneer turn.
I like this pick here from Huang, going for the Leroy Jenkins, because it could be just a win out of nowhere, particularly if he continues to go face. Also, it's a way to deal with his questing if we go on a Gadgetzan Miracle turn.
And does he fancy this? I think he does, yeah. He's going to go for Coin, Gadgetzan Preparation and see where he's at the end of those 2 cards.
Yeah, and this is the pressure that the Dragon Priest can put on you. They just put minion after minion after minion, and Fluffy feels like he has to go for this right now, expecting the coin to just get to the 6 mana for the Gadgetzan Auctioneer in the first place here.
Oh, yeah, he nearly queued up the prep, but he managed to catch himself, queued up the coin just in time there. Obviously, you don't want to prep into coin because you get a 0 mana, 0 spell.
Yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous. Gets the prep into Fan to take out the Draconid Operative as well.
And by the way, just to point out here...
Wow, another counterfeit coin into the small-time Buccaneer.
Yeah, just to point out here how skillful this turn is. How much practice do you have to do, D2, to play a Miracle turn this efficiently, this correctly, and this fast?
I'm just in awe at the 16-12 Questing Adventure. Like, that was so insane. He didn't even have that many cards to play in hand. Somehow he was able to buff up the Questing Adventure by how much? He had play 9 cards that turn to buff that from a 3-3 to a 16-12. He only had 5 cards in hand at the start of that turn.
And it's not often your mechanics really count in Hearthstone. Obviously, it's sort of a bit of a joke amongst some esports players. Oh, you don't need mechanics. Fluffy started that turn almost instantly with the Auctioneer. He played everything incredibly quickly, and he finished the turn with the rope burning and no mistakes made.
Right, and he's going to win this game right here. Cold Blood itself is going to be enough to get through this questing adventure to the face of Huang here, and well played by Fluffy there.
Nicely done. You just cannot stress enough how hard it is to do those miracle turns. You sit and watch them and you go, well, that's all obvious. Yes, it is, if you've got 3 minutes and you've done it a million times before. But to just sit there on the stage, realise that, look, my gadget hand's got to go now, I'm not sure what's going to come, react to each card. As you saw there, he went for the preparation, picked up the coin, decided, realised that would be a mistake. Didn't make the mistake, played the coin, and yes, you got good fortune, but the good fortune came from the fact that he played it so perfectly.
Yeah, and I do like his decisiveness at the very beginning of the turn, right? It's like, do I save this coin for the Gadgetzan later? Do I just expend it now? But he knew from before, and he made up his mind from the time he played his questing adventure that he was going to, if he could find a way to sacrifice his Tomb Pillager, he was going to sacrifice it, and he was going to go on a massive, Gadgetzan turn there. And didn't waste any time. A lot of players would think, like, well, I don't want to use the coin. I want to save the coin for the Gadgetzan.
We saw PNC get in a little bit of trouble yesterday where he would spend 30 seconds wondering whether to go, and that 30 seconds he needed at the end of the turns occasionally.
And there's no way, if he spent 30 seconds thinking about whether he was going to go with the Gadgetzan or not, he was not going to finish that turn in time. But we're going to get to the next one. It's going to be the Shaman versus the Lock. And before we get going, actually, that's one interesting thing to think about that last turn. It seemed so obvious for Huang to just slam down the Draconid Operative, right? You're on 5 mana, you just play the biggest minion possible. He's probably thinking, oh, I need this to deal with my opponent's, questing adventure coming up. But if he just played nothing for the Tomb Pillager to die into, that turn never actually happened.
Yeah, sure. It's always a difficult decision how long to make sure you keep the Tomb Pillager alive for, but he couldn't have expected what came out of that. It was double preparation turn.
Yeah, it was, and double counterfeit coin as well. But we're gonna see Fluffy start to ramp up the pressure here. Gets the buff Spirit Claws as well. That's why he put down that Thalanos, and lots of damage going to phase 9 to be exact. Huang doesn't have a real great way to deal with this. Excuse me.
Yes, going to be harsh. He's going to take some damage. And this is where you've got to decide how you want to progress. Is an Imp Gang boss actually worth my while here, or do I need to do something a little bit more panicky, like play a Farseer?
Yeah, we see that, obviously 9 damage on the field already, and an extra 8 from the Lava Burst because of the buff onto the Tunnel Truck, including the spell damage. So it would have been 17 damage, and it would have been very close to lethal there for Fluffy.
Fluffy here will make some plays that may look a little bit strange, because in his mind, he will still possibly lose this game if there's a Reno Jackson. So he'll be doing the maximum amount of damage he can, whilst making sure that his board could survive. He'll be working out, can I kill you by turn 5, and also still have a board if you heal on turn 6, or with the coin on turn 5. And so he's presenting lethal here already, which means that's fine. He means he can afford to do the 3 damage to take out the minion.
Right. So for Huang here, if he goes for the Demon Wrath, it takes out the minions to the right of the Flame Tongue Totem, which is a big deal. There's beyond the 7 on the left side, plus just the 1 from the Dagger. Unfortunately, that means that a 7 damage Lava Burst, if you include the buff on the Tunnel Truck, would be lethal. So it's going to have to be Kazakis into 1 mana potion, into coin out that 1 mana potion right now. And these are very bad for Huang.
Very bad indeed.
Doesn't want value. He just wants to deal with the board right now.
2 damage to all minions.
2 damage to all minions. The same thing as Demon Wrath. Doesn't really help him.
Yeah.
Gain 4 armor doesn't help him either. So he is just going to be dead regardless of what he chose here.
Yeah, obviously he doesn't know for sure there's going to be burn in hand, but he'll have played enough games against Aggro Shaman to know that he's probably in a world of trouble. And Fluffy just 2-0.
Yeah, just going to go ahead and Lava Burst the face here. That is the most damage that he can do. Just going to work out to see if he has that damage, and yes, he certainly does. 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 5 is 14. He has the extra 1. He's 1 damage over lethal. Just going to double and triple check just to make sure, because this victory for him is huge. Getting this 2-0 and perhaps topping the group if he's able to take out Celestial's Huang here.
Yeah, and Huang not really had a chance to show what he can do. That's 2 draws from Fluffy. Again, I don't want to take anything away from that rogue turn. Or this, I mean, he's played this fine as well, but I don't want to take anything away, particularly from that rogue turn. It was fantastic. But Huang has just been like, okay, you've 2-0'd me. There's not much I could have done about that apart from queue different decks.
The one thing Huang could have done in these 2 games combined was to make the very next level play of not playing a Dragonhead operative on a turn where you have 5 mana and you can play Dragonhead.
You've got to play into... Your opponent needs to have... Yeah, he needs to have stuff to back up a coin auctioneer turn.
Exactly.
And I think I'm even willing to say that he would have known that was a possibility and decided that I need the 5/6 more often than my opponent has that turn.
And if they don't have that turn, he just wins the game a larger percentage of the time because he got the Leroy off of that as well. His board maybe doesn't get taken care of, and, you know, maybe there isn't such a massive way for the question to get that big. But we're going to get into the next match here. It's going to be the Dragon Priest on the side of Fluffy this time, going off against Huang's Reno Lock. And this is part of the reason why Huang queued this up last game, because the Reno Lock does very well against the Dragon Priest.
Yeah, there's some things that Priest doesn't do well, and scaring Warlock with its relentless removal is one of those things. You're just playing a bunch of stats, and Warlocks deal with a bunch of stats pretty well.
Yeah, they have pretty good removal in their arsenal. They have Shadow Flame that can be combined with the Power of Overwhelming, you know, maybe just a minion with a large amount of health. They have Twisting Nether. And we've mentioned this a few times throughout the day, but, you know, even though the Priest, as we take a look at the Netherspite Historian discover here, even though the Priest is very good against Reno Mage, is not good against Warlock because of that extra removal that deals with everything on the board.
And the lack, I was going to say the lack of burst. The Crush is a weird kind of burst, but the lack of burst that the Priest has means that Huang can take his time, make that tap. Against some decks, you just can't hold back on the Doomsayer like that. But here he's just got as long as he wants to play this Doomsayer and get as maximum value as possible, because the Priest just can't surprise you.
Yeah, if you play the Doomsayer in 2 and they have Shadow Word Pain, then it just gives them exactly something to do. If you play it, you know, a little bit later, they either have the Shadow Word Pain and they have to stop to do it, or they don't.
Yeah.
And Huang's going to take a little bit more time here. And there is the Shadow Word Pain picked up, so if ever... I'm just going to utilize it right now just for the tempo. I'm not expecting the Doomsayer to be coming out any time, since Huang has decided to go for a different route.
Yeah, nice little diversion. They're testing for the Shadow Word Pain and rewarded for that. Will he do it now? Looks like he's going to. And this is going into turn 4, which is going to allow him to just get to the board on one of the crucial turns in this matchup. It's a turn where both of you have your 3/5s, your 3/6s, and start to establish some sort of board. So
I want to point out one thing in Fluffy's list. He does run Ragnaros, so as far as burst is concerned, Huang needs to be at least cognizant of that. But Huang has definitely dealt with the pressure so far. Gets to play out his own Mountain Giant, and the very least is going to get the Shadow Word Death used upon it, and Fluffy doesn't really have a follow-up after that.
Right, and as you said throughout these 2 stage games, the thing you're doing here is you're eating up 5 mana, which is buying you time. The Priest is going to pay 5 mana to kill this Mountain Giant. Yes, you'd love it to stick to the board, but if it sticks to the board, that's even better. But the worst case is it eats up 5 mana, you get to go first again, put the initiative back on your opponent. Now you're on turn 6, you can actually draw more cards and play your 4-drops. And all the time, he's just making the Priest play catch-up. And Fluffy actually says, you know what? Wow. I don't want to be that far behind. I want to draw these amazing cards.
These are very nice. I kind of doubt he goes for the Twisting Nether. That's kind of an admission that you're going to fall behind. Shadow's very good for having a spot removal, because you only have, you know, the hard removal on the side of Fluffy. You don't have that damage, but does go for the Twisting Nether. Shouldn't have put myself out there like that, but...
Wow, and now we've got one each.
Yeah.
I guess he feels that I'm not falling behind unless something weird happens here. But I'm not going to build... I don't need to build an even bigger board. Look at all these minions I've already got. I don't need those. I need something that does something unexpected, and another minion is just expected.
Right, and it looks like he's falling a little bit behind on this board, so perhaps that's what he's kind of thinking about right now, right? If this giant goes into, whether it goes into the Crusher or not, you know, he's starting to fall a little behind, but Fluffy really wants this to go face here because he could just go for the death and follow up with, you know, a coin into something like a Twilight Guardian. Huang's seeing if he can, you know, get a little bit damage in the face right now, but the way you win this matchup is you just hold on for a long time, play Jiraxis when your opponent doesn't have much of a board, and win from there.
Spew 6/6s everywhere.
Well, when the rope starts burning, you're like, ah, okay, let's go for the same plan.
Exactly. That's good strategy, by the way. Pick a play that you see that makes a lot of sense, and then when the rope goes, don't suddenly change your mind and panic about it. Just do the little good play that you saw, and if it's not 100% optimal, it's always pretty good.
So we've seen Fluffy continuously not deal with this Mountain Giant, and it makes sense following up on his play from earlier where he decided, well, it's not enough for me, right? I don't want to give initiative back to my opponent and play the death and do nothing afterward. And having played a minion already that, you know, dies to it essentially, he's not going to spend a Shadow Word Death on an 8/3 anymore. So he says, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and use my minion combat. It's more imperative for you to kill my minions because I can just heal them back up. And I can save this death for a later turn when I can actually use its tempo. Use the fact that it's very cheap to give me tempo back into the game. Like for instance, in a couple turns, if a minion comes down that he can Shadow Word Death, he can play that with the Draconid Operative. All of a sudden now you're gaining tempo rather than losing it.
Yeah, and look at all that damage you took leaving that Mountain Giant out there. Yeah.
Well, it was a gamble, right? Because it's kind of a win-win situation because either you're able to deal with it with just minion to minion damage. He's already seen the Earthen Ring Farseer, or has he? I guess that was the last game. But the minion to minion damage helps him out, and if there is no attack onto it, then you can go ahead and Shadow Word Death it and get value that way.
Yeah, and my point being exactly that is that he had far more time than most players would expect. We're thinking, oh, you got Shadow Word Death, it's an 8/8. He was still on 30 3 turns later, and it's only now that the Giant's finally connected face.
Right, well, Fluffy does have a way to just attack his Blackwing Technician. Let's see this. Kazakis, probably not going to be useful. Perhaps you go for the Blast Crystal Potion, gives you another way to start dealing with your minions. Your opponent's kind of running out of stuff to do, though. You already have the Shadow Word Death in hand. So what kind of minion are you going to take out with the Blast Crystal Potion? But considering the alternative certainly makes sense. They're going to go ahead and take out the Refreshment Vendor while he's at it.
And again, I think that what Fluffy is doing is he's building a more diverse hand to give himself more options. One of the reasons the Priest is so bad against Warlock is its predictability. So if you've got a bit of removal, you've got a bit of AoE, you've got a Twisting Nether, you can surprise your opponent and make them make a mistake.
Alright, well, Huang says, alright, I'm going to finally get this board back. I'm going to go ahead and use my Abyssal Enforcer, but that's going to get Shadow Word Death, and Huang's going to... He saw him perk up just a little bit there as he's like, that came off the left side of your hand. You've been playing extremely patient here.
Right, and this turn, this 5 + 3 = 8 turn that we've just seen, is a function of him not killing that Mountain Giant.
Right.
This has allowed him in one turn, it's basically built his own Kazakus Potion. I'm going to have a 4/4 and kill your guy by being patient, by being willing to take a couple of risks. The very, very calculated risks. That I don't mind if you hit me in the face, like you said, I don't mind if you trade the minion. And he's managed to have this tempo swing turn to give himself at least a squeak of a chance in this unfavored matchup.
On the side of Huang, oh, he's just going to go for Draxus. Alright, so this isn't as risky as it appears. He is not going to die to Rag at this point, and he can Reno the following turn. So don't mind this too much. I would have personally liked to see the Sylvanas come down because there's no great way to deal with the Sylvanas other than the Holy Nova, which uses all your opponent's mana. But now that he is at that 15, this Draconid Crusher is going to continuously be able to, big as it can get.
And I keep saying how I like how Fluffy's playing, but he doesn't play the Ragnaros there because he knows that Ragnaros will be dealt with. Deck lists are open. He knows that Huang can deal with the Ragnaros or he wouldn't have played this Jiraxis. So he doesn't play his Ragnaros, so that when this is dealt with, Ragnaros is going to come down and it's going to clear up the face a large percentage of this time.
We're going to see Nether into Infernal into Rag here, aren't we?
This is what we're going to see, and this is because Fluffy did not put the Rag on the board because he knew it could be dealt with, and now he's got a 50-50 clear and a 50-50 win.
Wow. This is absolutely huge, and Huang doesn't even have a way to deal with the Rag other than the Sylvanas here. This is an absolutely huge moment right now. Can Fluffy just take the
Fluffy's
series
face.
right now? This might be the series, and it goes to the face. He takes it with a massive 3-0, and he most likely will be moving out of this group and possibly in first place because of the huge fact that he is 3-0 with the game score as well. That wins almost every single tiebreaker.
Yeah, and Fluffy there showing, I mean, Huang did nothing wrong. He had very, very few decisions to make. Like, it was one incredibly next level play he could have made. I don't think he'd been right even if he'd done it. And Fluffy has shown there what he's made of, and we're going to be seeing quite a lot of him over the next